All right, ready to dive deep into the world of Vikings.
Always ready for some Viking action.
But this isn't just any Viking. We're tackling the legend, Ragnar Lothbrok.
Oh, the one who blurs the lines between history and myth.
Exactly. Makes you wonder what's real and what's a great story, right?
Yeah, like trying to solve a puzzle with some pieces missing and others from a totally different puzzle.
We've got two academic essays trying to untangle that mess, so.
So we're separating fact from fiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What made Ragnar such a compelling leader, and
And how did he go from farmer's son to a legend inspiring generations?
it's a question that's been around for ages.
To get Ragnar, you need to get the world he lived in.
Right, where power was always shifting and alliances were.
As shaky as a long ship in a storm.
Exactly. And right off the bat, you see Ragnar was ambitious from the start.
Yeah, the story about him killing that giant snake as a young man.
Whether it's true or not, it's a powerful image.
Definitely. Like he's saying, I'm Ragnar and I'm not scared of anything.
Even a mythical beast. And that story, real or not,
Got him the nickname Lothbrok, Shaggy Breeches, because of the clothes he wore during the fight.
talk about making an entrance. But Ragnar was more than brute force.
Oh, absolutely. One of the essays talks about how he used marriage strategically.
To build his power base. His first wife, Lagertha, was a shield maiden.
Not your typical Viking queen. That says something, doesn't it?
Shows he valued strength, didn't care where it came from.
Yeah, he saw Lagertha's potential and made her queen.
And his second marriage, to Aslog, who was supposed to be descended from Norse gods.
Added a whole other layer to his image.
It's like he was weaving together military power through Lagertha.
And divine right through Aslov.
These weren't just marriages for love or kids. They were calculated power moves.
He knew power had many sides, not just military. Lineage, image, public perception.
He was playing the game on every level. And speaking of playing the game,
His relationship with his brother, Rollo. Now that's a story.
talk about sibling rivalry. But it shows us the dynamics of power and loyalty in Viking society.
Rollo was always a threat to Ragnar's ambitions, a wild card.
And yet, Ragnar kept him close. He knew pushing Rollo away,
Would be more dangerous than keeping him close.
even if it meant always watching his back. He understood human psychology.
Knew that absolute power was dangerous, even those closest to you.
Can become your biggest rivals. So, friends close, enemies closer, always thinking ahead.
Strategically, Ragnar was in a league of his own.
More than raids and plunder, he was an innovator, embraced new ideas and tech.
The source mentioned his use of sunstones for navigation.
During his raids on England, that's key, sunstones weren't common knowledge.
These crystals help find the sun even on cloudy days.
But Ragnar sought them out, open to new ideas, pushing boundaries.
It wasn't just raiding either. He actually started the first Viking settlement in Wessex,
Permanent foothold in enemy territory. Shows his long-term vision.
thinking about lasting presence, shaping Viking expansion.
He was playing the long game. And that leads us to one of the most interesting parts of his story.
His relationship with King Ecbert of Wessex. Two guys on opposite sides.
Yet they had this respect, like intellectual sparring partners.
They saw ambition in each other, a willingness to think differently.
It wasn't just battles and treaties, it was about testing each other, learning.
And this brings us to something else that sets Ragnar apart. His openness to new ideas.
It wasn't just politics and war. One essay talks about his interactions with the Christian monk Athelstan.
Now think about it. A Viking leader in a pagan society.
Genuinely interested in a totally different belief system.
Not something you see every day. Especially back then when religion often meant conflict.
But Ragnar, he had this insatiable curiosity, a thirst for knowledge.
Even if it meant questioning his own worldview.
Like he understood knowledge is power no matter the source.
That's something we can all learn from, even today.
Let's pause here, let it all sink in. We've covered a lot, but there's much more to this captivating figure. So we left off talking about Ragnar's open-mindedness.
Almost radical, right? A Viking leader steeped in Norse traditions.
But he's engaging with a Christian monk, asking questions.
Trying to understand a totally different worldview.
What do you make of that?
Shows his intellectual curiosity,
Yeah.
definitely. But it also hints at something deeper.
Deeper.
He wasn't just gathering info. He was looking for wisdom, insights to help him lead.
He knew true power comes from understanding your own strengths and weaknesses.
But also those of your allies and enemies, right?
Which brings us back to that quote about power attracting the worst and corrupting the best.
Quite insightful, especially for a Viking leader surrounded by violence and ambition.
It suggests Ragnar wasn't just about action. He was a thinker.
reflecting on power and its effects on people and societies.
He understood ambition's allure, but also its potential for destruction.
So he was walking a tightrope.
Yeah. On one hand, this drive to conquer, expand his influence,
But on the other, he saw the dangers of unchecked power.
a constant internal struggle.
And that conflict shows in his relationships, like with Rollo.
And his interactions with King Ecbert also show this,
They were rivals, but with the grudging respect, even kinship.
like seeing a reflection of themselves in each other.
Two ambitious leaders, driven by power, but also capable of introspection.
And vulnerability.
Yeah. Those vulnerable moments make Ragnar so fascinating.
He wasn't a one-dimensional Viking warrior, just about conquest.
He was complex, with flaws, doubts, aspirations beyond the battlefield.
Speaking of transcending battlefields, let's talk legacy.
His sons, Bjorn Ironside, Ivar the Boneless, became legendary figures.
It's not just raiding, they reshaped Viking strategy.
And the Great Heathen Army. That's where things get really interesting.
That massive force that hit England in the 9th century.
It wasn't just revenge for Ragnar's death.
It was the culmination of a vision.
Decades of work to transform Vikings from raiders into a unified force.
Capable of challenging Europe's mightiest kingdoms.
Transforming raiding into conquest, opportunism into empire building.
That's Ragnar's influence, even though he wasn't there to see it.
He planted the seeds, building alliances, pushing boundaries, showing the power of a shared vision.
His sons and the Vikings and the Great Heathen Army, they reaped what he sowed.
Powerful, even in death.
A symbol of Viking defiance.
A rallying cry for those who challenge the established order.
His death, snake pit or not,
Ignited Viking expansion that reshaped Europe.
it shows that the most powerful leaders aren't always the ones who live the longest.
Sometimes it's those who inspire, who plant seeds that grow beyond their imagining,
The true mark of a visionary leader,
seeing possibilities and inspiring others to believe in them.
even when the path is uncertain and dangerous.
But we can't forget Ragnar, the man behind the legend.
The strategist, the politician,
There was a human being who lived, loved, struggled, triumphed.
made mistakes and learned.
History is about the people who lived it.
Their choices, sacrifices, legacies,
And Ragnar, even with the myths.
reminds us that even extraordinary individuals are human.
Hopes and fears, dreams and regrets, just like us.
Maybe that's why his story still resonates.
He wasn't a god, he was a man who defied expectations.
Pushed boundaries and left his mark.
So, as we near the end of our deep dive,
We've explored Ragnar's world, his rise, his relationships, his brilliance, his legacy.
but what can we in the 21st century learn from this Viking leader?
A man who lived over 1,000 years ago?
The million-dollar question, what wisdom from someone so distant?
Can the lessons of a Viking warlord be relevant today? That's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Vikings and modern life.
Yeah, long ships to boardrooms.
Yeah.
But I think there's stuff we can take from Ragnar.
Even today, his ambition, that willingness to challenge things.
Still valuable today as it was back then.
Think about how he led, not just a warrior.
A strategist, a diplomat, an innovator,
He got that real power comes from strength, intelligence.
and being able to adapt. Any leader can use those in business, politics.
Even personal life, right?
Absolutely.
And that open-mindedness coming on, a Viking leader interested in Christianity.
A totally different belief system.
We're bombarded with info and opinions these days.
That ability to listen, to consider different views, challenge ourselves, it's huge.
It is. It's admitting we don't know everything.
Right. Intellectual humility and empathy, trying to get where others are coming from.
Even when we disagree. Builds bridges instead of walls.
Find common ground in the middle of conflict.
So Ragnar today, what would he be?
Well, probably not raiding anymore.
Probably not, no.
Maybe a tech CEO, shaking things up.
Disrupting industries, pushing boundaries.
Or in politics, handling those global problems.
With strategy and making alliances.
Right. Picture him, boardroom, negotiating, or on the world stage, making peace.
He had that presence, that charisma.
People listened to him, followed him.
Not afraid of risks, challenging the norm, thinking differently.
That's still gold today.
But the biggest thing, I think, leadership isn't about titles or positions.
It's about doing, inspiring, creating a vision, and working towards it.
Empowering people, seeing their strength,
Helping them reach their potential.
and leaving the world better, right?
Down.
Through innovation, diplomacy.
Or just showing courage, integrity, compassion.
So, wrapping up our deep dive into Ragnar Lothbrok.
Let's remember, the past isn't just old stories.
It's wisdom, inspiration, even guidance for today's challenges.
And who knows? Maybe there's a modern Ragnar out there.
A boardroom, a political arena.
Someone ready to change things? Lead us to new discoveries.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions.
Keep diving into history.
Until next time, keep those minds sharp and those ambitions burning.